Yeah, I want to bring a little bit of context about this study group before we start. Um, the journey was started far away in time for me with permaculture, meaning not that far away, but let's say like something like 7 years or 8 years ago. It's more like 9 years actually. 9 years ago, and 1 year ago, Clinton and Anne Chloe asked me about whole permaculture, why and like this there was no space holder for that, and I jumped on this open door to refine what I was already doing. Like I've delivered many training in France and experimented with many backgrounds such as philosophy, intuition, energetic. And then when I found possibility management, I said, wow, this is perfect connection, perfect match. And today is the second meeting. And there's a lot of things going on within this group. And yeah, so the name is Syntropy in community, like finding the edge between or the quality of relating in a, let's say, a bunch of people with that we relate to, not only community, but more like collaborators, friends, but could be also community or family or people we relate to. So that is the main subject. And for now, I have this open field.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can share also a little bit of background, just so that people that listen to the recording like get to know you both, and then we can start.
So yeah, my point of origin is also in this physical realm of permaculture, and I like to experiment it. And in the toolbox of permaculture, I find a lot of tools how to regenerate the land, and how, especially in the design part, how to create the physical part of the game worlds, where then also the new culture archy can find its place, as with the permaculture tools we can create sustainable systems, so we can we don't have to worry about the food and the water and the energy, and thrive in the system. And lately I came around this syntropic agriculture, agroforestry, and what I learned there is a very, or is a nice tool in the part of permaculture that makes it easy for me to especially restore degraded landscapes. And that's what I really appreciate about it, to create this fertility. And so I started a syntropic system like 2 months ago, and I'm working with this to see how it's going. And I will next, or in 2 weeks, I started another project, una parcela más, to do new and more experiments and find out how it's going. Thank you.
Can you say again the name? I didn't hear. Can you say it again?
I don't know how to say in English. Parcela.
Hmm.
It's an area, a new area
Yeah.
to work on. Mm.
A new system.
And yeah, to start a new system with new ideas and a new species.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mm. So my background, I see myself as a social permaculturer. Like permaculture, has this thing of integrality of there's this holistic view that is intrinsic to permaculture. You know, like look into the whole aspects of life, and especially here in Brazil, there the syntropic agriculture movement had a boom because of Ernest Roch that lived here in Bahia. So uh, I know a lot of regenerative farmers and a lot of bioarchitects. So it's like these fields had so much people on it that people start uh, misleading permaculture with the techniques and other concepts. You know? So this is one
Mm.
of the, I think, one of the erosion problems of the concept of the permaculture game world, that it's losing its holistic view, and people are um, sometimes making confusion with like permaculture is it's humanure. Permaculture, it's like a system to heal water. Permaculture is like a bio building, and in like the world is losing its roots in the lens of to view the world. And I don't know many permacultures that work in this social field here. So I'm kind of almost felt alone in this country about it. And in the PDCs that I organize and teach, I'm am this person like holding space for permaculture to be something more than people are calling it. And the relationship with social systems, I think it's so fertile, like the same way that we have toolbox to regenerate degraded lands. How can we look our toolbox to regenerate social systems, you know, groups of people? And when I see, so I love the subject of this meeting, syntropic community, like look into the relationships. It really called me because it's something that I really love to do. These bridges between these physical material living systems with the social systems that are ideas, organizations, something that is not so tangible. I don't know the word for that. My English is sometimes, yeah, it's a little bit rusty, so I'm sorry for that. So something to start with, an idea is that entropy tends to be a way for disorganization, or for chaos. I think in possibility management we have good uses for chaos. So chaos, it's a word that we can look at it with more care, but it's like the tendency to disorganization, and I like to see it also as the lack of metabolism, like a river that the a water when it's coming from the land, the water is so alive, and it starts to have so much movement, and it turns off to be a small next to it goes to a waterfall. It starts to get a lot of movement, and in the end of the entropy, you have this huge river that is like going so slowly to the sea because the movement was something in the past. Like so I like this image of entropy being the tendency for the movement to be to have less movement, less metabolism, like thinking of a human body that it's getting growing old. When I see a social system in entropy, I can use an example for the place I live, that it was a community project 15 years ago, and they have this moments of being a waterfall, lots of ideas, lots of energy, and lots of new people coming and going. And then now they are like in a more entropic state of, oh, these were our first dreams, and we are not. They like accepted the idea of they're not going to be a community as they wanted no more, and they are only neighbors, and there's not so much metabolism, there's not community projects happening. So I like this idea of seeing the quality of energy in the system. So when we have complexity of energy and relationships and movement, we have, this is the tendency to syntropy, from as I see it, as I like to poetic see it. Yeah, just 10 cents to start the conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I allowed also James to come on board, as he was also the one who sent the name, like Syntropy, and I grasped his idea and wrote it in a way that Syntropy for community. Yay. We share a little bit about, very shortly, about your journey in permaculture, and Sorian was making connection between metabolism and the social behaviors, and a way to regenerate social system from this general idea of syntropy. So welcome in this.
But it'll maybe flesh out some more. Thank you for, and apologies for, there was a lot happening here this morning.
Welcome anyway.
Nice to meet you, Jake.
Do you want to say a little bit of context where you come from, a little bit, and yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I would love a round of introduction. That would be great. So I have been actively involved in community resilience initiatives for since around 2000. Around 2000. So the last 20 something years. That has included, I came across permaculture in 1977 in Australia, and did a PDC around 2002, somewhere around there, and led the Transition Towns movement. I don't know, are you familiar with Transition Towns? Yeah, so it grew out of permaculture. I led that and facilitated that in New Zealand, and we grew it up to 50 initiatives around the country over 2 years. And then I got involved in food forest design work, and mostly around education. My strength is connecting people who have the knowledge and the experience and the wisdom, and bringing them to people who are in need, who are wanting, desiring that information, and to apply it. And so I brought Stephen Subkowiak from Quebec to New Zealand. I don't know if you know him. He runs Miracle Farms.
Gardener.
Yeah, commercial permaculture orchardist, beautiful man. And then Curtis Stone and Jean-Martin Fortier for another tour in 2015, and then more recently have been discovering syntropic agriculture. I started a food forest on Waiheke Island in 2008, and it took a very long time to get established, and there was a lot of fighting with weeds, but eventually it's come to maturity and has a it's public, it's on public land. So I have I have a lot of joy for that, for knowing that project is there, for seeing the food being produced in there, and I have a lot of joy for the model of syntropic agriculture as a way of fast tracking that through diverse, dense, and planting, and the time aspect of short, medium, long-term life cycle plants. And I could see how I could have fast-tracked that food forest project significantly if I had known about this. And so that what brings me to the present day, which is where I'm now partnered with a beautiful woman here in New Zealand, Janet Redmond, and we are both sharing our passion for creating culture where nobody needs to go hungry. Yeah.
Wow. I feel a lot of joy hearing all the resources that are there in all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would like somebody to briefly explain what is entropy and what is entropy. Is that possible for some of you?
We were looking up the SYN part of Syntropy recently, and it was about connecting the pieces. So Syntropy, synergies, yeah. So that part of it, I can give you. The entropy part, I did some reading around that some while ago, and it's I guess that in the Syntropy model, syntropic model, it feels like acknowledging that everything has a life cycle, that it blooms and decays, and working with that and using it and to advantage as opposed to fighting it. Feels like.
And also, I think maybe Anton, you were also talking about entropy, which is the degradation, or let's say the natural degradation of a system.
So from complex to more simple.
This could be
disorder, chaos. It's what makes a cube of ice melt, because energy will degrade through time. So it's what makes our body degrades through time also, and so it's a tendency to disorder, maybe.
The tendency to disorder.
I think the tropy, the tropos word, I usually translate as tendency. So as James was saying, like the sin of syntropy is like convergence, no, it's for connecting parts. So it would be the tendency of convergence, of connection, of organization, and entropy, the tendency of disorganization, of disconnection, disorder, chaos.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Marriage of those two is that's a beautiful thing.
And
and it brings how to say this distinction about, I don't know if you heard that, chaotic design, like for example,
Yes, yes.
how to create with the chaos, or giving order to the chaos, this dance between order and chaos.
Mhm.
And I wonder if I was thinking about the social field, and I wonder if it's relevant to speak about entropy in the social field. And I feel fear about bringing this other, I don't know if it's a concept of negentropy, like, you know, the reverse of it. Well, yeah, so, and I'm also wondering about what you said, James, about creating a culture where nobody starves. Is that what you said?
No one goes hungry.
No one goes hungry, yes. So if I try to convert it in the social realm, that would be where everybody has its 5 bodies fed, or its 5, like, and is really alive, like not only starving from food, but also starving from the invisible, like, and that's where I can sense there is a bridge. And also one big topic, I wonder how this will unfold, but I pour the things here and you do whatever you want with, is the connection between shifting from the world of material value to a world of non-material value, and how permaculture can make this shift also. And maybe that's part of the answer of, not only feeding people with food, I would say.
Yes, and feeding people with food requires people to be present in all 5 bodies, so that love is present and connection is present, so that when somebody is, it becomes clear that somebody has a need, that person's need is met. I take responsibility for making sure that that person's needs are met too, and that in all 5 bodies. Yes, and I'm not. I'm. My focus is is the food part. Acknowledging that in the larger context. Yeah, because I can do more. I can I have a bigger lever if I focus my attention in that part.
Yeah, and also I want also to bring that in the field here as like something that codes for me, I would say, entropy in the social system is the lack of deepening the higher purpose. Like when for me there is no higher purpose.
Would you repeat that?
When there is entropy, or let's say when the social system degrades, or, you know, dissolve into something where people don't talk to each other anymore, and the space is filled with resentment, people, you know, deny that there are emotions or feelings in the way, and then conflicts arise, that naturally, I mean, because that's part of the resolution, let's say. Then
and that becomes like the humus for the fertility for growing the connections again, growing the 5 bodies, the fullness of social system afresh from out of that conflict of which is it's composting.
Definitely that could be a way. I mean, that definitely could be a way to and I was trying to bridge what you said about you're focusing on the fruits part, on the food part, so that you're getting strength. And the other side, what resonates with me and how I function with groups, or I relate with groups, is finding the higher purpose. So that what is the first thing inside, like the goal or the, let's say, the first purpose could be reached because there is a leverage effect, because there is a higher purpose. Like it's not only there that we want to go, it's up there. It's even more. And I don't know if it's a rule or like a natural law or whatever. But I know that some philosophers talk about that when you reach a higher purpose, you can reach physically the purpose that was below. And so there is a kind of acceleration to get the things, better and better, more in the way of fighting for a goal or really wanting to go somewhere. So I was also having this distinction when you were talking, James, and it's not the same thing, but
the higher purpose of evolution is how it lands in me when yes, and in order for people to evolve, they need to be sustained at a physical level and sustained with the best quality food that can possibly be taken in, like the highest quality food grown with love, grown and imbued with love, with and all of the nutrients and all of the diversity and all of that. It's just a foundation piece. The body's healthy and but the higher purpose of evolution. Thank you.
Yeah.
I like what you said, Gabriel, of the how, like, we are researching how do we recognize entropy in social systems, and the lack of a higher purpose, it's an aspect of it, and I like to hear that. And other aspects that I see, it's the lack of cooperation, like lack of trust. So it's a question I make many times to myself, like what would be the health indicators of a social system, because we usually use a lot these words for living systems, like how can we measure the health of a garden. So how can we measure the health of a garden of people, no? And one of the things that I really strong for me, it's about trust and cooperation. So if the system has more cooperation, it has more health. It goes to a more syntropic way. If cooperation and trust together starts to decay, it's a tendency towards entropy. And something that it connects to me with the permaculture lens, that is about relationships. So what determines if a living system is healthy, it's not only the variety of elements, but the variety of relationship between these elements. That's the true health in a living system. It's how the elements are relating to each other, no? So in a human aspect, this is cooperation. When elements have relationship, they are cooperating. That maybe it's the same thing in different words, no? So the lack of relationship between elements, like neighbors that don't talk to each other, conflict so big that people don't stop relating. this is the tendency to entropy in a social system for me. So making connection, making everything that helps people to have more relationships, it nurtures the syntropic way. It nurtures a more syntropic system. And there's this phrase that I love about, because when Anton asked like about what is entropy, what is syntropy, and for a physicist, maybe syntropy is a concept that's not acceptable, because entropy is the second law of thermodynamics. No, it's in physics, it's something that is unnegotiable. It's unstoppable. And in a kind of way, syntropy, it's like a poetic term. It's not so like old science, no, it's new science. And and one of the things that I love in this poetic term of syntropy, there is this quote, I think it's from Bill Mollison, that the yield of a system, it's only limited by human imagination.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much possible ways of connecting elements of a system that is so far away from or the limits of our imagination. So like that, there's always a way to get things better. There's always a way to have more relationship and more relationship brings more yields, because it's a cycle. If you have more relationship, it will create no material or material value, but it will create value in any way. So syntropy have a deep connection with imagination for me because of this, because the more we spend time imagining how we can create more connections, more syntropy, we have more relationships. So the limit is our imagination. The limit is in our mind, because we can't. How have you ever seen a garden that was full of relationships and couldn't have more? Like, it's only nature maybe can make this. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And those health indicators, the cooperation, trust, information sharing is a
Yeah.
Nice.
I also wanna had this distinction lately because I'm actually following the PDC of David Holmgren, and in this PDC there is a distinction about that in the way that people cooperate in extreme conditions. And I guess it's
You said, sorry, I didn't hear you.
In extreme conditions, people cooperate and have this ability to create, like for example, the fire in Australia are also led by people, like by people that gather together, because the government is not taking responsibility for the fires. That is an example that he's sharing. So for example, this could be also a resource for, but this example is like in extreme conditions, for example.
So can you just tell me, like, so what is happening? People are coming together to take care of the fire, to like deal with the fires?
Yeah, and there is Clinton that when I come, I want to invite him to in the room, if you're okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What I was saying is that people in extreme conditions start to, hey, welcome, Clinton.
Thank you.
Uh,
Hi.
Start to gather when there is this extreme conditions, like, and I know that for some reason in Australia, because of the bushfires, some people voluntarily commit to create teams to to manage the fire, because the government is not taking responsibility about the real risks.
so the cooperation starts to appear when there is a danger. But
In
people
that case,
would not
yes.
do a lot together if there would be no danger.
Possibly.
I guess what is coming to me is like it's the power of fear
Mm-hmm.
in that. Like,
Yeah,
I'm also,
perceived danger. What danger they perceive, because the danger is there, people just don't perceive it yet.
yeah,
They're sleeping.
They could also prepare so that there would be no fire. So they could, if they would already be cooperating and plant the certain species to hold back the fire, then they could hang out at the time when there would be the fire.
Yeah. And so that would require the conscious fear to
Mhm.
motive to plant the species that are needed to hold back the fire. Yeah. And it
So
could
we're-
also be that it's coming out of the chaos, right? So we were talking, Clinton, about the roots of the word syntropy, the sin being connection, making connections, and entropy of decay, and looking at that in terms of social systems. How does that work in social systems? And it could be that the breakdown of society, and the connections that perhaps existed previously that are less that are not existing now, that we've been so dispersed and so disconnected that in the midst of that chaos, that breakdown is the possibility of coming together, in this case to fight a fire.
Thank you.
I liked what we just said, that fear, conscious fear, can be a doorway to cooperation. If we are seeing cooperation as a health indicator of social system, it can be in this invisible toolbox of regenerating relationships that we were talking about before.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's the central issue, because in ordinary permaculture, such feelings as fear have no place. There's really there's no language, no understanding, no respect for this force of intelligence and energy. And the whole idea of a holistic or, whole permaculture is to bring those resources to play, to add intelligence and energy to the whole game world.
Nice.
yeah.
And I have one question to what really is permaculture. So it's in the word, it's connecting this permanence and culture. So isn't it then a culture also into needs food for the physical body? So it needs this part of gardening. It needs this part of shelter and building. But what I discover in permaculture is that a culture that's sustainable needs also the food for all the other 5 bodies. So then now we were or in the past calls, there was the discussion about the name, but isn't an archaearchy actually replacing permaculture? As permaculture is a culture, then if we live in archaearchy, then we are taking care of our physical bodies and we do gardening and all that stuff, but isn't there then no need for permaculture anymore?
I mean, you have to get it that archaearchy is as vast and diverse as modern culture in terms of all the aspects. And so there's a thing called agriculture, for example, which is sort of a section of food growing, you know, so people are engaged in growing food. And that's also a key element of archaearchy. And so we need to come up with names like possibility coaching or possibility psychology, et cetera, for domains where in archaearchy, it distinguishes it from modern culture forms of the same thing.
Yeah.
And so if we cannot call it agriculture in archaearchy, really. So, and permaculture came from somewhere, I think, with an impulse that there's a drive towards archaearchy. It's more responsibility, more consciousness, more awareness, more bringing stuff together, in terms of syntropy. So I think permaculture is one of the first elements of, really taking a stand for something that's different from ordinary agriculture without taking a stand for the whole culture shift that's needed. And so then it gets left behind because it's leaving out the internal aspect, the consciousness aspect, really. So I think part of our job in creating names so we can distinguish and talk about these things clearly is an empowerment. It's an empowerment because, I love gardening, and it's not my job. But there's people whose job it is to just, call food forth. It's just a turn is there. It's on their bench to do that, and it's not for money. They do it because it's how they bring their value to the community, to the village. But it needs a name.
That was a good distinction. I appreciated that distinction, that the permaculture being a response to a destructive agricultural food production system and and permaculture, but not addressing I don't know if it doesn't address the culture. That might not be a fair, because there are lots of aspects of permaculture that do touch on the social aspect.
Yeah, I was about to add to what you both said that for me, permaculture is more designed to be a bridge between the gardening, the ecology, and the archaearchy. It's more, I sense more that in what is it, and I'm still thinking about, there is so many discussion in the permaculture realm about how this could evolve and be something else still. And I guess the first one of the big reason why there is no yet it's not yet embedded in permaculture is because of gremlin and fear of gremlins. That's the main reason. And I know, like, also one of the big inspiration of I know also from David Algram is Hawk fifth sacred thing. So it's really like this perspective about the future. So that's where the fear could be a resource, like to envision what is the future. Not only a bright friendship future, but more like a, I don't know, it's not reasonable future, but something like a future which is tangible. And yet, I guess for presenting permaculture in where it started, like from ecology, from outer, then I understand the complexity of bringing forth the distinction with like, for example, novels or science fiction, which are indeed the novels that brings future into the words. So,
I mean, I'm working on a novel now that's along those lines, but I don't, my experience in my life is not that the future has come out of novels. It's come out of political decisions or new technology or wars or borders change between countries and those kinds of things, this kind of forces. And I think all those come out of human awareness. And so, for me, my approach has been towards upgrading thoughtware of human awareness. How do we? And to me, there's some kind of a field around the Earth, essentially called a morphogenetic field, that is limited by a status quo, like the average, like the kind of lowest common denominator of the media and stuff like that. And so, I watched some television shows, especially during COVID stuff, and you can see the kind of background assumptions and the kind of culture that permeates the media. And so if the media changes, what you're saying, if the media changes, then people can imagine different outcomes, what you're saying. But what's really the cause of the outcome is a change in behavior. And so when people can behave differently, so my novel's about, having new options to choose from. They have conflicts, there's this stuff coming up, and then there's people using essentially possibility management and coming up with new solutions that ordinary people would not even think of because they don't have the language and they don't have the distinctions. And so there's these groups around that are discovering this stuff and sharing it with each other. And so I think what you're saying has really value, Gabriel, and we're talking about permaculture and not a media production company. So, but I agree with what you're saying in terms of that media. People need some way to get some ideas of what else is possible. And I don't know, it's like, I think it takes all of us doing everything in every different dimension, working all at the same time. And we don't know what's going to pop first or what's going to matter the most. But I think it's really all important. So I appreciate what you're saying.
I think there's a huge importance in storytelling, as in recording and recording in order to show what's possible. So if I think about the spaceport and all of the abundance in there. Yeah, okay, great. And at the same time, people need to connect not just with an idea, but they need to connect with the source of the idea, with where it birthed, so that they can really connect with it. So when we're involved in whatever projects we're involved in, I believe it's so important to record the journey so that people who come later can connect with the roots and the source of it, and then go, yes, I identify with that impulse that burst this, and now I'm looking at this, and right, okay, that's how I can do that. I can do better than that because I've got this other resource, and I'll bring that to it. But it's if we miss recording the early stage, it's a disservice. Yeah.
Something
Actually,
that
I just wrote about that in the novel. Just the importance of documenting the origins. Yeah, cool.
yeah, something that comes to me. I read the history of the group, and there's something about what permaculture are we referring to? What history of permaculture are we referring to when we are talking? Because even I was touched by something you said earlier, Gabriel, in this meeting, like about the material value and non-material value. So how can we bring no material value to permaculture? And for me, permaculture already sees no material value. You understand? Like that, there's something happening that permaculture as a game road and as a word, as a concept, it is being a process of erosion of meanings, and it's losing its wholeness in meanings. So like it's that thing that I talked in the beginning, like here in Brazil, people say, I do permaculture, and it's about bioarchitecture, or it's about humanure composting, but it's not about the system view. It's not about the lens to see the world. It's about techniques. So it's a game road that is losing its concepts for techniques. And this is, I see it happening in other countries too, talking with other people. I don't know, I would like to even to know more about what happens in other countries about it. So what I'm talking this because in the whole permaculture side, there's always this distinction between permaculture, inner permaculture, outer permaculture, and inner permaculture. And I see something missing. That is this other aspect of using the toolbox, the lens of permaculture to work and regenerate social systems, because permaculture has been used to living system, to material systems with material values, and I know lots of regenerative farmers and lots of bioarchitects, but I don't know other permacultures that work with social groups, with mediation, with emotion and stuff like this. But there's this other realm that is not only about, it's about inner permaculture, but about regenerating gardens of people, of regenerating social systems. So there's a whole huge road to for we to make bridges and use the distinctions from possibility management and from permaculture to have better access to regenerate social systems. So I felt that this was missing in the conversation. So when we talk about holistic whole permaculture, for me it's not only about outer and inner, but about what kind of living systems can we regenerate, and we not only the living systems inside our bodies, but outside our bodies, and the social ones made of ideas and concepts, and the material ones made of wood, stone, sand. And so I think there's a lot of abundance for we to look together to it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I had the similar overview about what is happening in France, and it's mainly about the degradation of money, because money, like permaculture, has to be for free, and and for me, that's where I call it maybe social taboos. Like it's exactly where permaculture is stuck, is where there are social taboos. For example, money. I would say perspective about the future is also a taboo. Like, how can someone see the future? Like this kind of thinking. And there are power issues. Like power issues are also taboo. So, and emotions, I would say, like they are the main, I would say the main taboos, like, because there needs a specialist to heal that. So how come permaculture could take that in charge, or people from the permacultural realm could take that in charge because they are professional for that, or this kind of idea. So I guess that's really what stacks the game world. So really reconsidering what is a taboo and what are the doorways for that, like from that point.
That's beautiful, Gabriel. We've been talking with Rubina about the possibility of bringing possibility management into a PDC in February, and it hasn't gone anywhere. Like, I mean, we've had the conversation, but the decision has been made not to do something significant. And as you were talking, the idea of bringing permaculture design practitioners who lead and hold PDCs, bring them together to have the discussion about what's taboo in permaculture. What are we not talking about? What are we not exploring? What are we not being brave and courageous and diving into? That would be a very interesting step.
Yeah.
I ask myself, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. I ask myself after this last talk, and how about connecting the PDC with work of possibility management? Why not make something significant? What is in the way, and what led you to the decision to not do it?
The decision was made by Rubina primarily in a conversation with Anna about I don't agree with it, but they made that decision. They made that call, and that's her call to make. So
And what's the reason?
There was some notion that bringing possibility management into a PDC would I wasn't part of the discussion, so I'm not going to be able to bring the fullness of it to you, but something around that. In part, the people going into a liquid state with PM work is somehow not supportive of the work of the PDC, and that these are people in the early, like, beginners in permaculture, and it seemed to be in conflict. There was a sense that the two wasn't a way to marry them. I don't agree with that, but that's.
I mean, it's really funny. I mean, it's hilarious that would be any kind of a consideration. I started a website called Compost Yourself, and I understood that composting had something to do with permaculture, soil preparation, new seeds, cultivation of new seeds and new fruits and things, and relating. The ability to relate. So it's pretty hilarious that those things can be so easily blocked from people's perception about, permaculture and human permaculture, whatever it's called, but the evolution of human presence or human consciousness or human connection or abilities like that. And it involves composting. It totally involves the personal experience of composting. That would be very important for first-time permaculturists, I think, to get under their belt, the ability to compost themselves.
And
I just share that I've been bringing possibility management to PDCs, and I can share some experience about that with with the people that is organizing this PDC. I would be open to it. Just to,
Thank you.
and
Thank
it's
you.
been
Thank you.
very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll reinitiate some conversation there. Thank you.
Go.
Yeah, I would like to join too. I'd like to hear that.
Okay.
I had something like that just click when you both shared, like when you shared this experiment of bringing PM into a PDC, is that actually Bill Mollison didn't want to create a PDC. Like this was his way to create, to really integrate it and so that it could grow faster. And so he brought it to university. So that was his decision. And I want to bug a little bit because I want to grasp what were the initial idea before bringing that to universities. It's like what were the research of Bill Morrison before, creating this PDC that becomes a modern culture. I would say more a modern culture outfit or training. Of course it is green and turn around ecology, but it has the software of modern culture in it.
I'm having this other thought right now, which is I'm in the book that I just was working on called White Witch of Tenerife. There's a story from this woman in Holland back in 1943. She was born in Holland, and then in her life, she became one of the first yoga teachers in Holland. And yoga back in the 50s, 60s, in the 70s, it was unheard of course. It was completely bizarre. People thought it was some kind of food or some kind of, I don't know, health treatment or something. People did not even know what it is. And nowadays, when a town that does not have a yoga center, there's something wrong with it. It's everybody, how's your yoga class going? You can almost ask anybody. And the same is almost true of permaculture. And it's like both of these things have gone through this cycle of being breakthrough technologies and really wake-up calls, like introducing people to whole new aspects of what's possible in human interaction and human education and human development. And then something else emerges. And I really think that we're at that place with some kind of combination of yoga and permaculture. You end up with possibility management or whole permaculture. You end up with a living, evolving, an environment in which you get to evolve along with your plants, along with your agriculture. You get to evolve along with this ecological system of how you're generating food, the collaboration between humans and the earth, Gaia, and how we're creating food, and it's evolving. And I think we're in the middle of that. And I think it's important as permaculture was and yoga at the beginning.
Yeah. I like the distinction of like human beings evolving together with the systems, because it's very anthropocentric, the permaculture approach usually of a human being regenerating everything around it, but not itself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Or designing everything around, except not redesigning myself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was the. Sorry, go.
Please, I can tell.
That's where I clipped that video as that piece where he was speaking about his connection with the plants and discovering the joy and discovering the connection, the information flowing from the plants, and it was that.
I love to see the video. You sent it. Very nice.
Yeah, it's in the group. Yeah. You did see it?
Oh, I saw it today, and I saw the man speaking about his emotions when he saw the the syntropic garden that he was building, and how it mix and how it bring so much emotions to him. So it's about these things we are saying now, the relationship now of inner garden, outside garden, and gardening. And yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, no, I was thinking about this thing of the PDC, because the PDC is based in a document from 1985, and tells a lot about how permaculture is eroding, because it didn't updated its curriculum since 40 years almost. It's amazing. And because this document called syllabus was written in 1985, and at that time we didn't have one fraction of the social technologies we have today. So that's why the social part it's missing so much, because that there was not repertoire in this time for things that they could do with social systems. But today we have so much, and why it's not updated, it's something that really tells a lot about this. I think the power games, gremlins, and all the things that are not helping this game world to evolve. But the base, the worldview, the lens of permaculture are so amazing as a toolbox to look at social systems, like watching borders at work, watching relationships, and how the yield of the system it's going to abundance as the relationships are getting stronger. So there's a lot of design approach that I think is very, very useful for inner and outside work in social system, and that could I think bridges between possibility management and this lens of permaculture could bring very beautiful insights of new maps, new thoughts. So for me, it's like, as possibility management was helping a brother to stand, like I don't see permaculture much as modern culture. I see it's as a door to dreaming of new cultures also. Like many people walked through that door in the last decades, and it helped a lot of people to see new aspects of things. So it's like a game world eroding, and now it has a lack of sense. And just to add something, it's interesting because in the group of Brazilian permacultures I met, people were talking this week about how many PDCs are not happening this year. Even one I was organizing that always had like 30 people. We always close a 30 people group every year. And this year we have like 8 people, and we didn't made it happen. And this is a pattern going on in the whole country. And the people are talking about like what's happening, why we are not closing our groups or courses, why the PDCs are not happening. And it's so interesting that nobody is talking about this erosion. People from other generations of permacultures in this country, like they are saying like it's something about economy, or like people or the marketing is not working for the courses, but they don't see something that it's in the root of it, that I think it's so visible that people want to evolve, and they don't want only a toolbox to work outside without inner work. It doesn't work anymore. And so it's like a border. It's really we are in the border, in the edge of of something, and there's even experienced permaculturists with a lens, with good lens for borders, don't see this border coming. So that's because I think it's also a generation border in a kind of way, like new generations need to come from the border, reviewing something other generations have done in a kind of way, because I don't know, it's like everything is already ready, and they don't want to change something that is working for many time. I don't know, we could talk a lot about how permaculture is eroding, but I think I'm more excited about creating new bridges, about what we can do with permaculture and possibility management together. This really excites me.
Sounds like a perfect opportunity, Dorian, to bring together the permaculture teachers who are not getting signups to come together and talk about and explore and do the social work together and see what more could be brought to PBCs.
Yeah.
Gabriel, were you gonna say something? Gabriel?
Yeah, I'm still thinking about one of my first teacher used to say that permaculture has some kind of list of activities, like, I don't know the word, like, yeah, like there are engineers, there are landscapers, there are builders. And he was not naming any of the activities in the social field. So that was pretty clear that from the activities that were spread out, that sprout from permaculture, there was mainly people interested in things and not in people. And I remember, like, David also talking a lot about people and people for things. And maybe what I sense, the bridge is like engineering, because engineering could be also for people and for let's say things. So and for me, it brings forth the necessity for next permaculture to integrate the how to say, the activity, let's use this word, of mediation. What is a mediator? So if a permaculturist is not a mediator, this is not next permaculture for me. Like, this is bullshit, right?
I need to go in about 5 minutes or 6 minutes, and I wanted to make sure that it feels to me like we're approaching a kind of strategy conversation. Like, it's kind of clear what needs to happen, and the question is, well, how? What sorts of ways could it happen? And one idea has been proposed, which is bringing together current or the current active permaculture trainers, PDC deliverers, and bring them together and ask this question: why aren't your courses filling up, and what else could be offered? What are people really wanting? Where are they going? And so there could be a series, like Gabriel, you also mentioned some kind of media thing, like a video, conversations, or articles, or books, or stories, films. And it's like, what strategy, the clarity that we have, I think can't get so much clearer than it is right now. What could get clearer is like, what's our game plan? And what you said about the engineers.
I just want to say that we also have this Architecture Maker Fair event in Portugal at end of the October, and that would be a place to consolidate the strategy.
Cool. And Chloe just mentioned that we're at the end of October. There's an Architecture Maker Fair in Portugal. It's a 5-day event, and it would be really an ideal place for people to come and also have a department, next permaculture, holistic permaculture, whatever we call it, to come together and strategize our strategy, our game plan. But Gabriel, what you said about the names of the different roles. And you mentioned engineering, and so mimetic engineering is part of possibility management. It's also part of next permaculture, whatever it is, because it's about how we think about what we're thinking, how we think about what we're using to think with. And that will cultivate different soil in each person about their capacity to think about things they never thought about before, or perceive things they never perceived before, by the way we cultivate the soil within us. And that's a lot to do with distinctions and memes, mimetic upgrade. And so that rings a bell, makes a lot of sense to me, that like preparing the soil, a new kind of soil grows new kinds of fruit like that. And also there's this whole, in terms of the social part, like permaculture is a game world. And we know how it goes, we know how it started, we know the rules of engagement, we know its purpose, we know, excuse me, a lot about the game world of permaculture. And the game world is, like you said, eroding and at the same time evolving, because we're having this conversation. So it's obviously evolving, and we're the next generation, and we are the next generation. And so, okay, it's our job to say how it goes, what emerges next. And so a lot of that might be writing out a new codex for holistic permaculture, whole permaculture, writing a new codex. How does it go? What are the value? What is the toolbox? Oh my God, you have a whole new set of tools that are part of permaculture. Because most of possibility management, you can look at it as tools. We have the 13 tools on the tool belt, and all these skills are tools, distinctions are tools, thought maps are tools, like all this stuff is, what Buckminster Fuller said was, if you want people to think differently, give them a new tool that requires a new kind of thinking to use the new tool. And that's how they will change their thinking. And so that, in a way, that's what we're up to here. And so the strategy of that, of like, how do we provide, how do we build out the game world of next holistic or whole permaculture? How does it go, like you said? And source that, source the documentation of the next game world of permaculture. And that now you're beginning to get the sense of why we need a name for it. Because what's the website called? What is the document called? What is the game world called? We need the name of it. So we're working on it. Thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to disappear. Are you ending right now, or are you going on?
I need to go. I have an appointment very shortly and things to do before that. So it feels like feels very complete to me for this moment. I have a lot of joy for this conversation, for what's bubbling up here. A lot of joy.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Me too. I'm very nourished and
good.
For me.
All right.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay, well, I'll see you next time then.
Exactly. See you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.